All right, at 6, so you want to go ahead? All right. We will call the order of the steering committee at 6. And we have a new member, Abe Bird. Abe, you want to say hello and say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Robert Bird. Friends and family call me Abe. It's a nickname. You're welcome to. Uh, Relocated back to Burnsville about 3 years ago. Uh, Bought a property. I grew up in the area. I've lived here off and on. Have a lot of family. I'm currently business owner in Burnsville. Part owner in Consolidated Service Contractors, local contracting firm. Also on the fire department. This is the second year for me with the Burnsville department. I live on off of Longview on Birch Lane, so I'm really interested in helping out any way that I can. I think Burnsville is a wonderful town, and I enjoy living here. I've got a 15-year-old daughter that also loves living here and did enjoy attending school, but unfortunately, given the circumstances, she's been resigned to her room for the most part since last year. So hopefully everything will get back to normal. I unfortunately could not attend tonight's meeting because I was exposed and tested positive for COVID earlier today. So that's why I'm remotely signing in today.
Well, you look
Hopefully
pretty
everybody
healthy.
can stay healthy and productive.
Yeah. Well, we hope you fare well with it and don't get too sick.
Thank you.
You look like you're doing okay, though. So that's good.
Yeah, Theraflu helps a lot.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay. We need to approve the minutes from the November 16th meeting. Did you guys get to look at those? Okay. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Minutes are approved. All right. The final draft of the land use plan.
All right. So, Abe, I'm Corey Osborne. I know you can't see me. I'm on the wrong side of the camera, but I'm the director of council of government. So, we've been helping the town with developing a land use plan for the past year, I guess. And so, this is the final draft for your all's consideration and approval tonight. We've met several times to talk about it, and we've tried to keep you in the loop as it's developed as best we can. The only changes that are in this draft from what you've already seen in your past meetings are the recommendation changes of the edits that were suggested at the last meeting. So specifically, and recommendation number 3, we altered the language to be more specific for double wide mobile home rather than all mobile home. And make sure we added language in there about them having to meet certain standards. But we didn't get into the specifics in order to allow you all some wiggle room whenever you do actually look at possibly adopting language within your development regulations to address those. Recommendation number 14, we altered the language of conditional zoning and special use permitting, more of a matter of semantics than anything else. And then we added recommendation number 18. Last time I mentioned that NCDOT had some funding issues and we weren't entirely sure if they were going to offer the bicycle and pedestrian planning grant for future cycles. I confirmed through our RPO rep that they are going to allow it or offer it this next year, hopefully in years to come. Those are the recommendation changes. We've also included the future land use map in the recommendation section. The changes from what was sent out electronically for the future land use map are only the ones that Heather had suggested in her emails, which she sent to everybody. Those are the only suggestions I received. I didn't hear from any other steering committee members who suggested changes. So Those are reflected in the map that's within that package you have in front of you tonight, and also within the PDF version that was sent out last week. For the purpose of what happens moving forward, as a steering committee, your work is fairly well done. The planning board would need to formally recommend town council to adopt the land use plan before town council has the option. State law requires it to go from the planning board first. So if you choose to make that formal recommendation that town council adopt this plan, it would then go to them and they would have public input at the town council level. If there are any changes after public input, they would have to come back down to the planning board for your consideration to make sure those revisions are in line with what you think is best for the town, and then you have to send it back to the council. So those are kind of processes. I'm happy to answer any questions about the draft itself, or how we got to where we are, or how we go forward.
Do you care to go over the number 3, 14, and 18 with us?
Sure. So number 3, last time in the original recommendations that I brought before you last time we met,
Page 59.
I had
Page
recommended,
59. Sorry.
sorry, I had recommended to permit mobile homes, non-specific to single wide or double wide, on individual lots in the R10 zoning district. After a lot of discussion with the steering committee last time and talking with Heather afterwards about what state statute allows you to distinguish when it comes to mobile homes, we altered that language to read to permit double wide mobile homes rather than all mobile homes, which is allowable under state law to make that distinction. You're also allowed under state law to attach any design standards that you want on those mobile homes within reason. So again, by adopting the land use plan or by the planning board recommending it to the town council to adopt, it doesn't have any effect other than trying to guide your decisions as a zoning board or a planning board or a council. So if the town council adopts the recommendations of this plan, it doesn't mean that mobile homes are allowed in the R10 zone overnight. It just means that the planning board and the town council feels that it's appropriate in the future to allow that, but you would still have to take the additional step of actually changing your zoning text to make that in effect.
Okay.
Number 14, we just altered some language from conditional zoning to special use permits. Conditional zoning is being done away with in 160D. And then so that's just a matter of semantics. And then recommendation number 18, I added in apply for the NCDOT bicycle and pedestrian planning grant because we confirmed that those funds are going to be available for future grants.
And Kim, just for clarification, a special use permit and a conditional use permit operate the same way. But because the new statute is going to authorize basically something called conditional zoning, if communities choose to adopt that, I think they didn't want there to be any confusion between a conditional use permit and conditional zoning. So it said you have to delete conditional use permit from your ordinance, which we have used that terminology instead of a special use permit. But it's basically the same.
Okay.
And I'll say this before we get too far, because I was out and we closed the steering committee meeting and opened the planning board meeting. Okay, so
No.
when we get to the planning board meeting is when you actually get to make like a recommendation up to the
Okay.
council.
Paul's got a question, but I don't hear. Hold up. We don't hear you.
Yeah.
Wait, you're muted.
You're muted, Paul. Can you unmute yourself?
Nope.
There, that's better, isn't it? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in the last meeting, and I just, by adopting this tonight, are we actually adopting, there's something like 20 changes in the land use map from what our current map is. Did y'all actually go through each of those changes and determine that they were appropriate, or? There's just a lot of changes in the current map.
Yeah, I should explain how those work. So when you're talking about the current map, I assume you're talking about the existing land use map that's earlier in the plan, or are you talking about your zoning map?
Well, the current map is our official zoning map from 2014, the one that guides us right now. And the one that I'm talking about is page 58, I think. It's the Burnsville future land use map. And there are like 20 changes from the 2014 map. And that just seemed, I mean, if y'all have gone through them individually and you think they're appropriate, then I don't really have a problem with it. But like the track that we're looking at tonight to make a decision on has actually already been changed in that map. So that's kind of why I'm wondering.
Okay, Paul, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, so it's important to note that the future land use map does not change your zoning. So your zoning as it is tonight and your zoning the day after the council adopts this plan is not changed by this plan. So that future land use map, its purpose is important for zoning, but it doesn't change the actual zoning. So if this plan is adopted, it's gonna be your reference map for any future rezoning requests. So say somebody comes and requests one of those parcels to switch from residential to commercial, so from R10 to C2. You have to look at your future land use map and make sure that the parcel in question, the town intends for it to become commercial. If not, that future land use map has to be altered before you can make any rezoning. So when we were putting together the future land use map, we were trying to anticipate how things are going to change over the next 10 to 15 years in order to avoid having to go back and re-edit that map and re-adopt your plan every time you have a rezoning request. So it doesn't change the zoning by virtue of being in the plan, it just guides your future rezoning request.
And
So the
Paul,
planning,
that's all this document is it's a plan, it's a guide for the future, but it doesn't make any changes to any zoning. That's a whole separate process.
but my question is, did you guys go through each of those individual changes and say that you thought they were appropriate? Because I haven't been involved in any of those meetings if they happened.
It was sent out to everyone via email for them to make comments and make changes, and there weren't any.
Okay, well, I think what it's setting us up for is like tonight, the Ron Powell request. If that map shows that it should be changed, then it's going to put us in a difficult situation if we evaluate it and determine that it shouldn't be changed.
The plan hasn't been adopted by the town council. Until it's adopted, it's just a draft. It's not even a comprehensive plan. It's not the plan we follow.
Okay, I just think it's gonna kind of put us in a bad situation if it contradicts what we decide to do in the future.
Well, you need to have the map in your plan. And if you decide to do something different than what's on the map in the future, then you have to amend your map. But it is not the official zoning map, it's just a planning map.
Okay,
Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Or not?
I think your concern is valid, Paul, just
Yeah.
because I put a lot of thought into what was going into the future land use map, and when I sent out emails on how I reached the designations that I recommended, it kind of went through my thought process. I don't know the specific parcel that you all are looking at tonight, so I can't speak yet, but when putting together the future land use map, I tried to anticipate what's gonna happen in the future. Most of the changes were along the major corridors, going from residential to commercial, which I anticipate as you grow is probably gonna be the case. If there are concerns over development in that corridor on a non-parcel by parcel basis, then you need to look at your future land use map and make sure it's in keeping with what the majority of the board feels needs to happen in the future in those areas. Because to your point, Paul, if you do have a request in the future and let's say it's a residential zoning currently and they ask to go to commercial and your future land use map says it should be commercial in the future, you would have to explain why you disagree with the own map that you adopted. So you should feel comfortable with what's in your future land use map. In terms of why we recommended what we recommended, I think the rationale's already been put out there.
Well, we'll have a good example of that tonight.
I can see where he's coming from. It does to me seem a little strange that this particular parcel is up next. It would be nice if we could have decided on that before we had to decide on this. I don't
Well, I mean, and where are we in, because we need to, is it ready? This is confusing because
Yeah.
we're steering committee and we're planning board, we're just
Yeah.
talking about a lot of planning board stuff, the planning board agenda in the steering committee meeting. So
Mhm.
we need to close the steering committee and open the planning board. And then,
But we can't decide on this, leaving the map out, can we? Since that's in question, could we do everything else and not decide on this map right now?
As a steering committee, all you're gonna do is close out and send it to the planning board, which
Is us anyway.
is you anyway. The planning board, your next step is to send it to town council with the recommendation to adopt. If you have a change that you want to see the future land use map, we need to watch that before you say just for.
So if we decide to change it, we could do that coming up in the meeting and it not be that, it seems like it would be a big deal to change it, but it's not a big deal to change.
It's still
If
draft.
that's how it goes.
well, and Courtney, this was a question that I did have, and maybe you can help us with this. For instance, this parcel that is, showing future land use commercial that is now residential, both C2 and C3 allow residential properties. It's not like if you approve something, you're saying, oh, you can never put a home there.
Right.
It's just, we have a C3 designation, which is our east and west Main Street corridors. That allows some different things than what we allow out on the bypass. But all of the, Brian, all of the zones have a mechanism for allowing housing. So.
Yeah, but that's a lower use, and so that shouldn't be a conflict to use a lower use on a zoned area. So like if the adjoining landowners don't like the change to the property we're about to consider.
Then they would come to the council public hearing, and then, the council makes the decision. Y'all
Right,
make
yeah,
the
we're just recommending.
Yeah, so, everybody has their opportunity to speak, if they have concerns. But
Well-
I understand, if y'all have concerns about the map, then.
Well, I'll be the first to admit, I did read the email and looked at it, but I did not sit down and compare which things had changed. If I had done that, I might have had a few, but that's my fault for not sitting down and comparing the two. I don't know if everybody else did. Which ones do you know offhand changed?
There are 20. I would say based on the ones to the north of the 4-lane are basically as Corey said, that we're basically changing currently residential to commercial within the commercial strip. So they're all adjoining, but that's primarily commercial going to R10. South of the 4-lane, there's 6 tracks that are basically being changed from commercial to R10. So they're going to a more restrictive zoning there. And, I just think if we're going to put it in this future use map, we as a board should look at each individual track and concur and not do it as a blanket approval. And I'm sure he's got good justification for why he feels that those changes should be made. And I would assume we'll probably agree with most of them. But if we haven't had a track by track discussion on that, I think we should.
Anybody else
Kim, you wanna
thoughts?
open the planning board?
Okay,
You wanna
wanna just close this out and go in?
Close the steering.
okay, so we're gonna close out the steering committee at 6:20. We're gonna adjourn that. And then we're gonna open into the planning committee at 6:20.
So any further discussion about changes or whatever, y'all can have it as a planning board
Okay,
for our minutes.
okay. And then we can come back to what we're,
Yeah,
It's gonna
yeah,
work
yeah.
its way around.
And you can, if you want to move this up on the agenda, you can do that.
it's kind of at the top yeah, let's do. I mean, since we're talking about it, let's just go ahead,
And move E to,
let's add it. Let's approve the minutes. That won't take a second. And then let's just move this discussion to B. And then just move everything down one. Does that sound good? Okay, so we're in session with the planning. Did everyone look at the minutes from November the 16th? Any questions or anything on that? No? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
All agreed? Aye.
I wasn't there, so.
Okay, so the minutes are approved. And did you guys get to meet, I call him Abe, it says Robert. Did you guys get to meet Abe? He's our new member. I think you come in late, you might have come in late. He gave a really good introduction to himself earlier. But, he's gonna be our new board member.
Okay.
So, okay.
Good.
Okay,
Well, awesome.
all right, now, let's just go back to where we left off with the map.
So I can go through a little bit of the justification of how I arrived at the designations that you see there. For the most part, I looked at existing land use rather than zoning. So I looked at existing land use, and for the most part, the future recommended land use is the same as what the existing land use is. The exceptions are looking at commercial corridors, whether that's the highway or east and west Main. I put everything, unless it had a industrial or utility or government use. I put everything as commercial. Around the downtown area, outside of the C1 zone, which is your downtown district, I expanded the mixed use zoning to give you flexibility. So if somebody wants to rezone C1, listen to it, I want to zone C1 parcel, it gives you the justification to make the rezoning downtown also. But it doesn't prevent you from rezoning the C3 or C2 or anything else, because mixed use is not necessarily tied to a particular zone, even though it's most conducive to your downtown district. The changes, after that, I sent it all out to the planning commission and the steering committee for everybody to look at, and with only suggested changes were in the vicinity, I can't remember the street, but just to the east of where the courthouse is. We've changed some of that from commercial to mixed use and residential to mixed use. And then we also, Heather, I can't recall, but I think that one parcel that we're talking about tonight is one that you could, or maybe it's tied to another parcel.
because those are, commercial, and it has that. It has been used as commercial in the past.
Gotcha.
Commercial and residential. Commercial and residential. And then the mixed use down, and that would be right down here, east. You know, we've got residential already down there.
Mhm.
I don't know if some of those parcels being where they're located with the flood area are gonna be able to, you know, the ones fronting Main Street, East Main Street, obviously, got some commercial activity now, but mainly residential back in there, so. I thought there'd be more, it seems like there was an island of residential
There would.
kind of surrounded, and I thought maybe mixed use would be a better designation, just so it could be either or.
But that's the process that was used to arrive at the map you're seeing tonight. We tried to get it out for you all to review for about a month or so, but obviously you have the right to if you really want to dig into each parcel. The map that we had that was interactive online is still up, and I can go in and check the ones that switched over to mixed use, so it's up to date, but you can go in there and use that tool as well to get a parcel by parcel view along with some aerial satellite imagery.
So, since I'm the one that brought this up, let me apologize. What it is I didn't realize that we were going to have the detailed individual track changes as part of what we were doing at that point, without having a discussion about each of those changes. Just so you'll know, all of the changes that are in here, I support. The only two that I had questions were the Ron Powell one that we're doing tonight, because that one didn't make sense to me. And the one that's between Church Street and Robert Street, that also looks like a major commercial bulge into previously residential R10. And so both of those, if you look at what our goals are and what we're supposed to evaluate requested changes in, neither of those seem to fit the change criteria to me. And I was surprised to see them, in here when the one with Ron came up. I was kind of surprised that it had already been changed. So then I started looking real closely to all the changes that were going on. Like I said, 90% of it makes sense, looks good, but there are a couple that just seem to put us. If adjoining landowners came into the city council meeting, the town council meeting, and had problems with it, I think it would look good for the commercial change and bad for the residential neighbors.
Well, I agree with Paul on that. I'm picky on when I vote. I would like to specifically look at each one of them. And that way, if I voted to change it and someone asked me, I would not be like, oh, I did, because I would not have realized it if he hadn't brought it up. But that's my opinion. I too would like to maybe put that off if we could, to have time to look at each one and maybe discuss it as a board, if that's possible. If everybody else wants to do that, whatever, I mean.
I would like to look at it, with the board members to before I make a commitment.
Yeah. What do you think, Greg?
I'm indifferent.
Abe, any thoughts from you?
Just for everybody's consideration, I've got to recuse myself from that whole situation. I've got a conflict of interest because that involves some family, so I'm moot there.
Would you like to see all the changes on the map, though, excluding that one? Would you like to know which exact ones were changed throughout the town?
Yeah, I think that that would bear, a little more oversight and maybe some direct involvement with the surrounding property owners. I mean, that would make sense.
Okay. Can we do that? Is that possible?
Well, I mean, if we do that, then we're gonna have to put up, yes, but we would have to put off, recommending to send it to council.
Yeah.
You can't send it without this portion of it.
Right.
And
Could we call a special meeting sooner just to do that? That way we could go ahead and send it to them. Are they in a hurry to get it or?
well, because what has to happen from council's point of view is if you send it to them for their February meeting, then they would, the procedure beyond that is they would put it on the website for public comment
Mhm.
for a month till the March meeting, and then at the March meeting, there's a public hearing scheduled, they have a public hearing, and then if there are no, changes or recommendations about it that, nobody has anything they want changed in it, then they would vote to adopt it as the plan. This does not, and I guess, I understand what everybody's saying, and I'm not saying I don't agree with it, but this doesn't change the zoning map, and this is not an adopted plan, and what we are doing tonight with this rezone has nothing to do with this.
But don't you think if we talk about what's coming up for the rezoning request,
You can't consider this because it is not part of the
no,
plan.
but would that be brought up later? If things, however that were to go, would it be brought up that previously we had approved this of some sort?
But you're not changing the zoning map. This is not a change to the zoning map. This is just saying in the future, these types of uses in these areas is recommended in the plan. But I don't think that you have to, Corey may disagree with me, but I don't think that you have to, if when council adopts a zoning change, I don't think it necessarily has to conform with this map.
It has to, well, 160D says any rezoning request has to have a statement that says it conforms with your adopted plan.
Well, that it's consistent with
It's
it.
consistent, it's a consistency statement, which you already have.
Right. So, but if it is inconsistent with the plan, council can ignore that and still adopt it, but it doesn't change the plan at this point.
Well,
It did.
to give you, for instance, let's say a parcel on here is shown as residential in your future land use map. 2 years from now, somebody comes and requests rezoning to commercial. If you're going to grant that rezoning request and change it to commercial, you would have to edit your future land use map to be consistent with that rezoning. If you've got a parcel, for instance, that's shown as commercial and is currently zoned residential, and they come and say, I'd like to be rezoned to commercial, and your future land use map shows it as commercial, you could probably legally turn them down, but you're cutting yourself off the foot if they take you to court for some reason. In my opinion, because you're going against what county council and planning board put in their future land use map. I can understand the desire to get the plan done and the process done. I know we've been working on it a long time. Whatever you all decide's fine with me, but I'd like for everybody to be comfortable with
Yeah, I would
whatever.
too. That's
Yeah.
the number one thing.
Well, could we do a special meeting? If everybody could come, maybe next week, if we just have to do it on there, just to go over just this? And that way it will be done and can be sent to them for their next meeting?
Yeah. I mean,
Would everybody want to do that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that would give you like a week or however long to look at it and study it, and then we could, like I say, if we don't want to meet formally, we could at least Zoom and discuss it, or how everybody wants to do it.
we would have to have enough time to notice it, so we need 48 hours to notice it. If you want to set a date, 18th is a holiday,
Oh,
the 19th, it has to be the 20th or the 21st.
And when is town council's meeting?
First Thursday of the month.
So as long as we do it before the 4th, right?
Yes.
I can't make it next week at all. I just remembered it's my wife's birthday.
What about, could you do it the week of the 25th?
Mhm.
Does everybody do one day the week of the 25th?
What day of the week is that?
The 25th is on a Monday, whatever day anybody wants to do. I can't do Tuesday. I mean, somebody needs to pick a day and time and we'll see who's good. How about, could everybody do Monday, the 25th at the same time, 6:15? Will that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be all Zoom or are we gonna do like this? It'll probably have,
Well,
Do it here.
yeah, we can do it here.
Or we WebEx, the space is available.
I think it's easier to have a discussion when you're like this. I mean,
Okay.
I've done the Zoom.
does that work for you guys, Monday? So that would be the 25th at 6:15. And that way we all can look at the changes and be familiar with it. And that way I'll be able to send to town council.
And the, just, the link that you guys got will, when you click on a parcel, it'll show you what it currently is and then what the proposed change will be.
So for the sake, I know I sent that out, it's been a few weeks and it's before the holidays, so it's hazy in my memory even, but I'll resend it tomorrow morning with the link.
Okay.
And I think it'd be better and easier if everybody between now and the 25th would use that online interactive map. And if you have any issues with using it, please reach out to me and I'll help you through it.
Okay.
But that gives you the chance to go through parcel by parcel, look at the satellite imagery. And if you would, write down the parcel ID number for any ones that you have questions or concerns about. And then the email that I send out tomorrow, if you just reply all like Heather did with those, the sheet.
And I had some that kicked back. Jerry, every time I send Jerry an email, it kicks right back and says,
I don't get any from.
I know.
I guess
Well,
that's
that's why
why.
it kicks back and I send it over and over again, but yeah,
Okay.
Where you send, what is email?
it's the Gmail account.
Well, that's Jerry's story at Gmail.
I know.
Maybe you got mad and blocked her one day and forgot.
I didn't mean to, if I did.
Okay.
If you would, I think that would make the conversation on 25th go a lot smoother.
And quicker. Yeah.
Can we discuss what's in question of Mr. Powell's, proposal to change so I can kind of have an idea? I tried to look it up and I.
Yeah, when we get down there, we'll discuss that. Yeah, for sure.
Is that on the 23rd? Can we do that tonight?
No, that's tonight.
That's tonight.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's,
Okay. So we got the map issue resolved for now, right? Are we good on that?
Heather, will you send me Mr. Bird's
we'll send you that for sure.
Okay, we need to adopt a regular meeting schedule. You guys want to keep it the way it is?
yes, I'd
Change
like
it up?
to keep it Tuesday at 6.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Second Tuesday.
Are you guys okay with that? Keeping it the way it is, the second Tuesdays at 6:15?
That's
That's
fine.
every quarter.
And it's quarterly, not every month. Okay. So I guess do we need to vote on that formally? Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to?
I'll make a motion to keep it the way it is, which is quarterly. The second Tuesday at 6, did you say 6:15?
Uh-huh. Yep.
6:15.
Okay. And I'll second that. All approve? Okay. All right. Next, discuss membership efforts, advertising for alternates.
Just need to let you know we need to do that, because Abe was an alternate for a hot minute, and now he's full-fledged, so we need 3 alternates. We would, if there are people that we should reach out to specifically, we will advertise for it, but
Okay.
there's no problem if y'all know somebody that you wanna recommend.
Okay.
That we should, reach out to specifically, that'd be good too.
Okay. Great. All right, and then, now the rezoning request from Ron and Minnie Powell.
So first, you guys will need to vote to allow Abe to recuse himself, because he does have a conflict of interest in this matter.
I'll make a motion for Abe to recuse himself from this.
I said,
All agree?
I agree.
Paul, you good?
Just a little, before Brian presents the staff report on this.
Mhm.
What, you base your rezoning, legally you have to base it on what the uses can be. You can't base it on what they may or may not be going to use the property for actually.
Mhm.
They can use it, if it is rezoned as C3, they can use it for any of the allowed, purposes in C3.
Okay.
Okay, so just to let y'all know that, and then this is just a recommendation process, so, for the town council. But anyway, go ahead. Brian, I guess Brian.
Okay. To give you some details here, I've taken some notes here. This is a property located on 407 East Main Street. I have the PIN number there listed. The property was purchased recently. Does everyone know where this property is? Okay, it's in behind the Jim Hughes and Associates survey. Used to be the Brian Butner property at one point in time. It has access, if you can tell the map, it has access to East Main Street, and like I say again, an East Main Street address. The adjoining properties to the south of this are already zoned C3. There is an existing structure on this property that was previously used as a part of a commercial home business. It's a accessory structure that was in the back, and I think maybe their intention there to use that for a commercial purpose in the future. This particular property has a natural vegetative barrier on the east and west sides of the property, a tree line, along with an existing 6 or 7 foot fence that runs along both that screens this particular property from the adjoining neighbors to the east and west. And C3 is designated as a mixed-use area with commercial and residential applications. I went and made myself a notation of the potential uses that are allowed within C3. But those are the particulars. The current owners would like to have that property zoned from R10 to C3 so that it could be used for a commercial purpose. And then I have a list. I think you all got a list of the adjoining property owners. If you didn't, I have a copy of that. Along with that, I think the current owners have spoken to some of those about the potential, but again, that we go through that whole process in the future about notifying the opportunity for them to show up to the hearing. If anyone has questions that I can answer, I'll do my best.
I'll just add real quick, procedurally, there'll have to be, if it is recommended to move this, whatever your recommendation is, town council will have to, do a 2-week paper notice, post the property, and all of the budding and adjoining property owners will get individual notices mailed directly to them of the public hearing.
so at the public hearing, will we know or anybody know what the use is going to be?
You can't make a decision on a rezone on what they're actually going to do. I mean, they can come and talk about what they're gonna do, but the decision has to just be based on, is it consistent? It's not spot zoning because we have commercial use in front of it
Right.
that adjoins it. It's not spot zoning, would it, be in the best interest, of the citizens, the town, the, adjoining landowners to do
It's
that?
such a small lot that it's kind of questionable what use it would have.
Does it have does it share a right of way with, Jim Hughes?
There is what did we decide that was called?
Well, the one that accesses, it does have access, I believe deeded access to the property.
Yeah, it's in the.
It has, I think it has deeded access off of Main Street.
Off of Main Street, there's other sides in here, there's also some
It's how the business and the
Yeah,
family that was there before
undeveloped
access.
alleyways.
There are some undeveloped alleyways, but those have been obstructed by neighboring commercial property, buildings, or,
Grass and campers.
yeah, things like that.
And we just, you know, one other thing just to keep in mind, if this were to get rezoned in the future, any development they would have to do would have to go through the zoning process, and they would still come to, you know, the subsequent review, go through the review process, just like it does with everything else.
Mhm.
Anything they actually developed on that property.
So this is my first rezoning, so I've got a question about the process. So in the packet, we had 2 Exhibit Bs. I assume one of them is for approval and one of them is for disapproval. Is that correct?
Actually, Paul, what you have the planning board's written recommendation. So what the law requires is that the planning board look at the rezoning application and then make a written recommendation to the town council. And so if you'll look at the document that's entitled Planning Board's Written Recommendation for an official zoning map amendment, it has down at the bottom that the planning board recommends to the town council, and you'll check either to approve or to deny the proposed map amendment, okay? The law requires that you also, in writing, provide what's called a plan consistency statement. So that's not this plan that we've been talking about. It's not consistent with that because it's not adopted. But previously, the law allowed communities to have multiple planning documents, and you'll see some of them listed there. The 2004 Yancey County Town of Burnsville Land Use Plan, the NC Step Plan, the small mains, sort of cobbled together for their planning purposes, okay?
Yeah.
Not ideal, that's why the legislature is now requiring an actual comprehensive land use plan. But, so, if you, approve it, then you have to also adopt a consistency statement that says it is consistent, for the reasons that are, you know, stated in that document. If you don't approve it, then you have to submit it's still a consistency statement, but it says it's not consistent. So that's why you have 2 Exhibit Bs.
Right. And actually, those were real helpful to me because it kind of gave what our criteria for would be for making a decision one way or the other.
And that's what it's supposed to do.
Okay. And so I guess applying these criteria, I'll just get it out on the table. It seems like it should be not consistent with the plan, just looking at these criteria. But my question is that if it remained R10, he would still be able to do some business activities out of that property, wouldn't he?
Only home occupations, like having a home office or something
Right.
like that. But you wouldn't be able to, what was there before, which was non-conforming, was an actual, that was owned by an electrician, and he had his electrician's business there, so that was his shop with his,
Okay, because when I looked at it, it just looked like a typical outbuilding that you would see in a residential area. So it didn't seem to be inconsistent, but I can see, based on what you said, that this guy was running a business out of there. So that was one of my questions, is it looked to me like it was a consistent use, but you're telling me it was in fact an inconsistent use.
well, it wasn't necessarily inconsistent, it was non-conforming. Okay, so so when you talk about zoning, there's consistency or inconsistency with planning documents. And then when you talk about use, there's conforming uses and non-conforming uses.
So the building could be consistent, but the use could be non-conforming.
Exactly. Like a residential, in R10, you can have outbuildings, but he was running a non-conforming business out of it. It's not like he was an accountant or, you know, that sort of thing, or running some type of what you consider home business. It was more of a commercial endeavor.
So he had customers coming there rather than making pottery and selling it on his own.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Somewhat. I mean, I'm not saying that there were, it wasn't necessarily like heavily trafficked with customers, but that's where he kept his tools of the trade and all of his equipment and sort of operated out of there. My
And
understanding.
so even though we're not creating a donut hole here, it does look like that we're pushing a commercial zone in a very narrow kind of peninsula type of way into adjoining residential uses. Is that correct or incorrect?
I think it is the way it looks on the future, land use. It looks like it's already been included in that one. In the future one, it's zoned
Yeah,
as
that's the one they were
commercial.
talking about. That was the holdup, I think. Are there any other properties like this that have been converted to C3? Meaning the actual property isn't sitting on Main Street but has an access road. I think like behind Pigs and Grits and maybe Short Bus Studio are kind of somewhat the same layout.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we definitely have parcels of land that don't have an East Main Street address that are C3.
Well, but I mean, like, so for example, the mobile home and the house that's behind Pigs and Grits.
Correct, yeah.
That is not C3, correct? That's still residential. I mean, that's still a residential. It's not a commercial.
Yeah, once you get beyond Big Grits, it's residential.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure if I'm reading my map
If
right.
you look at page 32, it's got a zoning map change to help.
Yeah. And so, but no other ones that we know of recently have been.
As far as rezone, no.
I don't think we've had a rezone since
Yeah, I don't know the last time we
2016.
have. But to say that there are properties that don't necessarily abut C3 that are zone C3, we do have that in the city.
Would that, well, is it, like the Short Bus Studio?
That would be
Some of
one
those.
that would be C3, yes.
And I know like, Randy's, I think Randy's property is, but it's one owner, right? That abuts up to Main
Right.
Street,
Right.
which would be kind of a reasoning why it's going further back if it's one owner owns both parcels, to me.
But there's other examples, I mean, moving on to like C2, there's a lot of properties on Pinova Street that are still zoned as C2, even though they're not actually on the bypass, don't abut the bypass.
Right.
So I'm just saying this wouldn't be super unusual. And this, again, this address does have an East Main Street address.
Mhm. The house that's behind the eye doctor, it's not a house, what is that? It's a building,
It's a home for,
It's a group home.
it's a special needs.
That's a group home, yes.
okay, is that still residential?
That would be parcel there, I believe. you're
That's what I was-
talking about.
Okay,
That's the one that's institutional in the future use map, I think.
Yeah, it's an institution.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, my only concern is that, you know, in looking at our current land use map, this change would look unusual to me. Meaning that if somebody else had a similar situation and we didn't want to change it, we would have a hard time with the consistency question. And that's just looking at the criteria that are in those two consistency statements. It does have a very narrow connection to commercial, but, you know, easily 75, actually 85% of this property is surrounded by either, well, by current residential or by, you know, vacant land. And actually in the future, in the existing use map, it was inventoried as open, as undeveloped land, but it's obviously got a building on it.
Does Dr. Aldridge own that, whatever it's supposed to be access road there? That's not connected to this property at all. Okay.
It looked like the only access in was by Mr. Hughes's.
Yeah.
And
Would it be possible to throw in the 2 lots to the right of it, since I don't think,
They would have to petition to change their zone. Like every property owner has to actually make an application and want their property.
And it seems a little awkward for the council for us to be making a recommendation before the adjoining landowners have even been notified of it.
That's the law. The law
Yeah.
is the planning board makes the recommendation, council makes the decision. You guys can vote not to approve this, and they can vote to approve it.
That is what I meant. I meant before we notify adjoining landowners to ask them for input.
Well, the way our ordinance is set up, the planning board, and the planning board ordinance is set up, the planning board does not have that authority. Then that's a council authority. The council makes the decision. They're the ones that are required to have a public hearing.
So if we recommend not to change it, it still goes before the council, and then they make a notification to adjoining landowners. And then Ron has the opportunity to come in and state his rationale for why he wants to change it, and adjoining landowners tell the council why they don't think, you know, why they want to do what they want.
Anybody can come to the public hearing. They will all be notified directly, and the public in general will be notified by a public notice in the newspaper that has to run 2 consecutive weeks.
The town council kind of uses us as not really a reference, but
Yeah.
what's what I'm looking for, not a weeder outer, but you can take what we, you know, if our board unanimously thinks one thing, that would have to weigh on their decision-making process. I mean, well, you know what I'm saying?
It could. I'm just.
You know what I'm saying? And the gist of it is,
We would consider it.
it's all, yeah,
Sure. I mean, they will get your recommendation.
yeah.
And then they can give whatever weight to it they want to.
Huh?
Anything else you want to ask?
no. But that is a right of way coming off of Main Street, and it's so the address is Main Street.
Yeah,
It's
it's
407.
405 East Main
I think
Street.
for that reason alone,
407.
that it's part of Main Street, it's kind of Jim's properties, commercial, and then this one is part of that. I don't think it's an intrusion. I respect the point he's making. If you look at it, it looks like a peninsula, but as far as like actually, it seems to me more just part of the commercial activity on that thing, so I don't see any reason why. you
I guess it
couldn't
depends
rezone
what commercial activity you want to need.
Well, it would have to be whatever's in C3, which Brian has a list of, they would have to fit within C3.
Okay.
So.
Maybe give her some examples. Would that help? Of what it could be?
I can list, of course, anything that's allowed in, I don't have that list, anything that's allowed in C1, which will be our downtown, is also allowed in C3. I can go over those if you want me to, but it's stuff like office space, business, professional, public, medical, financial, mortuaries, motels. You're not gonna put a motel on that lot of things.
Setback issues.
Personal service places like beauty shops, barber shops, shoe and watch repair, laundries, laundromats, dairy bars, trade schools, medical and dental clinics, those types of things.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about a bunch of barking dogs, you know.
If it helps you visualize it, on page 33 of the land use plan, it's got the table of permitted uses. You can go down the hall and see what conditions are used, permitted by use.
Yeah, because residential is permitted in C, but it's an additional permit.
The two lots to the right of it, could you build on those a residential house? Is there enough space there?
Small residential, the adjoining one is, just to the right. It's actually owned by Dr. McCall, who owns the other property, to the left as well. And that's just, open land at the moment. I guess it would be a small residence if you put it there. It's not a large lot.
It'll be tight.
Yeah.
Do you think it's unusual that it has a West Main Street address? Like, you have to turn up.
And East Main Street. It's due to that alley. That's a undeveloped alleyway that comes up there. But it is deeded in there that they have, and that is the address that they have.
So if they had a mailbox, where does it go?
Right at the edge of the street.
Since the other lots to the right and left probably won't ever have new houses on it, unless they're tiny homes or something, then they could, in a future date, could apply to have theirs changed to commercial too. And so I think this could be the launch of, the more practical use for that land, which would be commercial. Because we're not really, it is.
That particular lot sat unused now for
Oh my gosh.
7-8 years or so.
Yeah.
There was an existing mobile home on it that burned.
Yeah.
Any other discussions? Do you guys want to vote on it? Anybody else have anything they want to say? I guess that's a no. Okay. All those in favor of rezoning the lot from residential to commercial, say aye or raise your hand so I can see.
That's
So it's one.
rezoning it to commercial.
Yes,
Yes.
from residential to commercial.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm-
That's one. All those opposed in changing it from residential to commercial? Raise your hands.
I oppose.
Two.
I oppose.
Are you a,
We can't.
Undecided?
We don't vote, just so you know.
No,
Well,
Jerry
I
does. She's
have-
on the
I was
planning
thinking-
board.
Yeah,
she's trying to think which one she wants to do.
I'm good with it.
The no?
Changing it to.
Yes.
Change, do
You
you
wanna
want to change it to
commercial?
commercial? Or?
Or leave it as is. Leave it as residential, right?
It's residential now. Do you want to leave it residential or change to commercial?
What did you
I said change it to commercial.
That's what I
Hey,
thought.
that's what, the proposal is, right?
Yes.
That's what
Request is.
the
Yes.
request
Yeah.
is.
So how is the vote so far? Just,
I'm the only one that hadn't voted on
oh.
Yeah. She's thinking about it.
Like a-
yeah, well, since it is so small, I think I'll go with the commercial.
You agree to change it to commercial? So that's 2 yes and 2 no. So now what do we do?
And we don't have someone to be able to break the tie, and I will have to check the statutes unless Corey wants to jump in here, but
I believe.
I think I believe it fails. Yeah,
I'm not 100%, but I believe it.
but as a vote, what it will be reported to council is that there was a 2-2 vote. And, that it was denied. I believe it does fail, but I will check that out for sure.
Okay. All right. Moving on to procedural rules for the town of Burnsville, the planning board. Did you guys get to look over those? it's, I think most of us have all been in the meeting, so it should be okay, but just to kind of guide us as to, that was in the email.
Oh,
Yeah, it was in the email.
what was the?
But I think you might have, Chad might have a hard copy.
What are
that
we
help.
talking about?
The procedural rules, like, what we have to, just the way you operate a meeting, like.
Basically,
we
a
have to do this, that, and
policy
the other.
like how your meeting goes, if, Chad, do you have a copy?
You want
can
a
look
hard
at?
copy?
Oh.
That'd help.
I've glanced through it, I think.
Yeah.
Any questions, discussions on that one, on the procedures? I think they're just basic procedures that
the same?
it's like almost every public meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And this is what we have to be, we haven't changed it.
no,
Okay.
nothing's changed.
We just
No.
never had anything in writing,
Yeah.
Greg, about like how
You can
the
do that if you want.
meetings are supposed to, move forward and how.
Yeah, I need to really study that if I was.
Abe, are you good on that? Any
Yeah,
questions or
yeah.
thoughts? Okay. Discussion of the advisory board handbook.
I'm gonna,
Included this, something we've been working on, just a primer for new members especially, just kind of getting acclimated to the process.
Mhm.
And it's a more general overview than what you just wrote that, and, kind of covers all the advisory, position, to council. And it includes just some basic information on all the boards, advisory boards we have, on the back, kind of roles for chairs, members, kind of what's expected of staff.
Mhm.
It's kind of lays some of that stuff out for all of us.
Okay.
So we get copy of
I've got it on my computer, so I can work it.
Oh, yeah, she didn't get the emails. No wonder you're lost. You're just like, I know what's going on here.
They come from everybody but me. Her emails go through. Jeannie said her emails went through, because I'm
Where are you
check.
getting emails from the place?
I
This
think I
week?
got yours.
Get mine, okay.
I think I got
All right,
yours.
yeah, there'll be some copies
But I
on that.
haven't seen it. Thank you, Terry.
That sounded bad.
Yeah, it did. Abe sounding worse as the night goes on. Discuss, training modules. I hope that's not me, because I don't know what that is.
Chad has that.
I included in that actually, a list that will be some training courses they have,
Mm-hmm.
and we have access to them. And just want to make y'all aware that they're available, set those up if anyone's interested in those trainings. And on that sheet, it listed, everything that the league offers.
And we really should try to do that, because Woody was really good about doing that, and we kind of just used him. And since he's not here anymore, there's a good, yeah.
Is
So
it something you can do from home or on your own free time?
the ones now are from, some of them are Zoom, aren't they?
These, through the North Carolina, League of Municipalities, it's a module that we have to log into, we have access to.
Mhm.
So we could set them up, but we would need to do that for you.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, access to.
It's like a pre-recorded, like, webinar, but it comes to us through the League of Municipalities that's available. We
So-
probably could talk to them about if there's any way.
Potentially,
I mean, they're free to us. I don't know why it would be.
Is it, what, an hour for each one, or?
They vary, but I think typically around 45 minutes.
Yeah, because if I could do that from home, just kind of at your own time, I'd probably more likely would, probably be easier for a lot of us.
Is,
Yeah, I got the impression, unless you have
Right,
Especially given the.
yeah. Yeah, if you could find that out for us, that would be great. If that's-
Are they like for people who are inexperienced like me? who say not to do
That's what they're designed for.
it? Okay.
We're all for one.
So how many units are there?
How many units do you know? How many modules are there?
Yeah, I think my list is the back of that advisory.
So my reason for asking is that maybe if we want to be intentional about it, maybe every other month, Chad could send out a link and say, here's the one we're working on this month.
I think so.
No. Just that, yeah, that it is, you just need to vote on one of the consistency statements. If you're,
But I guess if that,
still have to send one.
I guess it would be that it failed, I mean,
You just have to vote on whether you find it consistent or inconsistent with the plan. And if it's.
Because that's not really fair, though.
wonder.
Yeah, well, I know, but then that, you still have a number vote on that, but I.
Residential living by pushing business.
To make them our own.
You're saying the 2014.
I mean,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah, it's what we
I
propose
just think it
going
opens the door
forward, but,
I probably was telling
oh my gosh,
I think about
I don't know what to do in that situation,
residential
other
areas are
than,
kind of special. You don't want business.
Can they hold off to the special meeting they're having to figure that out? I don't know.
Like that one on
Well,
the
I guess if it's happening,
Yeah.
no, I
we
mean,
didn't really agree with the whole
Already.
plan.
no, I mean, this isn't about the plan, this is whether or not this, you didn't adopt the consistency statement to go with your recommendation
Oh, perfect.
for the
Who
parcel.
knows
Yeah,
why.
that's what I'm saying. And two of
So
you
the vote that,
obviously found it inconsistent, and two of you found it consistent.
It's not what-
And the one person that can break the tie is recused, and due to a conflict of interest.
I'm more familiar with Tennessee, and it may be different in North Carolina, but in Tennessee, if you don't get a majority, it fails by default. So your recommendation to the council would be that it's not recommended.
Right.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
in
I
North
think you're
Carolina.
right on that. I think you are right on that.
so if that's the case, then we would say the plan consistency statement would be not consistent with the plan.
Do you usually have two votes, a vote on the recommendation and a vote on consistency?
The way the law, the way 168
I
is.
think since you already have the vote on the actual recommendation, I think you should have your second vote on the consistency statement.
Yeah.
Have it on the record.
Have it on the record. So, yeah. So I guess I will just,
Can you read that out loud?
Yeah.
Make it what we can do
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
As you vote.
okay, for if you find that the zoning map amendment is not consistent with the plans that we have, which are these 2004 Yancey County Town of Burnsville Land Use Plan, the NC STEP, and the Small Town the zoning change will not help establish quality commercial development in town. It will not help improve the local economy in town. It will not preserve property values in town. It is not consistent with or appropriate for adjoining properties. The proposed zoning map amendment is inconsistent with planning goals of the town. These changes are unreasonable and will not serve the public interest because they remove property more appropriately zone R10 from that designation and harm property values in the town of Burnsville by detracting from residential character of the area. So that is that's saying it's not consistent with the plan. So we would need to vote on whether you agree. And since we've had a split, we've already had people say, so you vote up or down on this the same way. Yes, before.
So those who agree that the change to C3 is not consistent.
It's R10.
Okay. So that's me and Paul.
And not consistent with the plan.
So you changed your vote?
Yeah.
Well, she can't change her vote from what she voted
But you're
for.
changing on the consistent.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think there's some confusion. You're saying it's not consistent with the plan.
Right.
I think the way it was worded was confusing for her. So you all voted that it is consistent, or not consistent.
Not,
Right.
Okay.
Three say it's not consistent.
it's not consistent, and one says it is, right?
Main Street.
So, but you can't put one on the other, right? Or can you?
Yeah.
You can, but I mean, it doesn't make sense, but
It's not consistent.
Yeah.
yeah, it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's non-consistent with the plan.
Okay.
So you have three voting that.
Three who says it should not be C3. It is not consistent with the plan that we have.
Okay.
And then those who want to vote saying that it is consistent.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, it's not that he does that. He just doesn't vote in favor of it being non-consistent. He would vote no on
Since
that.
since she's the third, it changes it. Does that change it? I'm
It's-
sure I guess.
Did you, which way did you vote?
It's two separate things. So you voted to deny because it was a tie, then it fails. So you do not recommend to the town council that they rezone this property. And then your consistency statement, you have a vote of 3-1 that this change would be inconsistent.
Right.
Inconsistent.
Yes.
Okay, so Jerry's voted that she would be for the rezoning, but she has voted that it is inconsistent with the plan.
Right.
Okay, making sure.
All right, and Greg, you're staying the same. You say it would be consistent with the plan and that it, okay. Yep.
Okay,
West
so-
Main Street.
Do I need to close out and go back into the steering committee? Or is all that on hold until we get them out? Every bit of that is on hold.
Yes, did they vote on everything that was on there? Yeah. Yeah, so at this point, I mean, no, there's no more, the steering committee is gonna reconvene and we'll have to renotice that on. We'll have to renotice both of them, won't we?
Okay, so the next meeting for
No, not for the steering committee, just the planning board.
planning,
We'll meet on the 25th.
25th.
in a special meeting.
It's 6:15, is that right?
It said 6:15.
Changes that were made for the future map.
Yeah.
And one of those little changes was just how voted. Because in his future map, lost added in his future map. That's how we
So, I mean,
Just to be clear, right now, this is just paper. It has no bearing over your decisions. If you want to be consistent with your actions tonight, when you recommend this to your town council on the 25th, you would want that changed to residential, if that's how you all feel it should be. But your actions tonight in terms of considering that rezoning request don't have any bearing on this outside of being consistent. This is just paper. It has no effect until you all recommend it and until town council approves it. And even then, it doesn't have an effect until a rezoning request emerges.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Kim, do you
Thank
have
you.
stuff for her to sign, all these things?
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.